answer. At this point, the Yankees have baseball's best record. Meanwhile, what can you say about Steinbrenner and Winfield that hasn't already been said of oil and water? But rather than wilt under the pressure, Winfield has come through. As George inadvertently helps him sell books, Winfield helps the Yanks win games. Ricky Henderson dropped to 41 steals in an injury-plagued 87, but playing once more for his favorite manager, he's off and running. He's hit safely in all 10 Yankee games, and he leads the majors with 10 steals. Now to turn the page and talk about the Milwaukee Brewers. A year ago, they were off to the kind of start the Yankees are enjoying now. Eventually, they went to 13-0 and 20-3. The Cheeseheads were going crazy in 87 at County Stadium, as the Brewers were the talk of baseball. But this time around, after winning their first two against Baltimore, they've dropped 7 in a row. Yesterday's home opener indicative of the kind of season it's been thus far. 2 balks, some walks, a bunt single, a Jack Clark bloop, and 5 New York runs in the first inning. The Brewers were finished almost before it began. They'll try and turn their luck around. The Yankees will try and sustain their string as we come up with part 2 of NBC's baseball doubleheader next.
National Broadcasting Company. Now in its 7th decade of bringing you baseball's memories. Baseball's milestones. Baseball's majesty. And baseball's magical moments. NBC Sports proudly presents the Major League Baseball Game of the Week. Today from Milwaukee County Stadium, it's the New York Yankees versus the Milwaukee Brewers. The Game of the Week is brought to you by Miller Brewing Company, sole sponsor of the U.S. Olympic Training Centers. By Toyota. There's quality, then there's Toyota quality. Who could ask for anything more? And by Delta Airlines. We love to fly, and it shows.
Welcome to Milwaukee. Bob Costas along with Tony Kubek. There's Dave Winfield at first base with 2 out in the Yankees' second. He just forced Mike Pagliarulo, who had drawn a walk. The batter is Claudell Washington on a 3-run homer by Greg Brock. The Brewers and Chris Bosio lead Rick Rhoden and the Yanks 3-0. Washington misses the bunt, and let's recap what happened in the first. After Molitor grounded out, Yount lined a double to left. B.J. Surhoff drew a walk, and that brought up Greg Brock, who was hitting just .222 through the first 10 games of the season and did not have a home run. He launched a belt-high fastball into the seats in dead center field for a 3-run homer in the Brewer lead. The 0-1 to Washington. So a reversal for the Yankees, who scored 5 in the first inning yesterday and had scored 13 first-inning runs in the 4 previous games at Toronto. They've been quick out of the gate. The Brewers did it to them today. There goes Winfield. Swing and a miss. Surhoff has trouble getting rid of the ball, and he's in with the steal. While we have a chance, let's take a look at Greg Brock's homer in the first, Tony.
Rick Rhoden had trouble getting his breaking ball over in the first inning. He had just walked Surhoff on a 3-0 count, got 1 ball, no strikes to Greg Brock, who was sitting on a fastball, and that's what he did with it. They have been having difficulty, these Brewers, hitting with men in scoring position all season long.
The 1-2 pitch. He went around. Surhoff's going to have to complete the play by throwing to first. It's the second strikeout for Bosio in the inning. He hasn't allowed the Yankees a hit through 2. And it's 3-0 Brewers as they come up in the second. Well, it's official. We're definitely in Milwaukee. Unsolicited. The concession folks have sent us a banquet tray of bratwurst along with the famed special sauce sauerkraut on the side. Doesn't it make you proud to be a citizen of this great country?
Citizen of Milwaukee's great South Side, where I saw those butchers make that Polish kielbasa right there, and Mom used to cook it.
Don't let me know what was in it. Just let me enjoy it. Here's Gantner to start it in the second. Paliarulo in close in case he bunts. Jim has been on the sidelines for a few days with a sore hamstring. This is his first game back. Tom Trebelhorn really had a shortage of infielders. Molitor can only DH because of a sore shoulder. Gantner had the hamstring. Castillo's out with a broken hand. Steve Kiefer is with his wife, who gave birth prematurely out on the West Coast. A ground ball to the right side. Randolph throws Gantner out. So yesterday, before Gantner was ready to play, B.J. Surhoff, normally their catcher, was at third base.
Here's what Rick Roden is looking at. DHing Molitor, then Yount. Surhoff, who hit third against the left-hander Tommy John, then Brock Deere, Glenn Braggs, Riles back at third, Gantner, and Dale Swaim. It's a lot of power in that 9 spot. Swaim drove in over 90 last year, batting 9th most of the time. And Trebelhorn has had difficulty scoring runs. A very unique stance right here.
Fly ball to right center field. Winfield in Washington, and it's Dave to put it away.
When you get a team like the Brewers, they've got quite a few strikeouts throughout the lineup. The Swains and the Deals. Robin Yount struck out almost 100 times last year. Braggs over 90. He's had to separate those players in the lineup so that he can get some continuity in an offense.
The man they call the Igniter, Paul Molitor. You know all about the 39-game hitting streak that captured the imagination of baseball fans throughout the country. The .353 batting average. But perhaps the most telling statistic, when he was in the lineup last year, the Brewers were 75 and 41. Had him out in front on the change. When he was unable to start, Milwaukee went 16 and 30.
You can see how he jumped on the first pitch. Even though it was a breaking ball, he's a first ball hitter. He hit the first pitch the first time up against Roden. Not the kind of leadoff hitter, Bob, that stands up there taking too often looking for a base second balls. He goes to hacking.
Brewers lead 3-0, 2 out, nobody on in the last half of the second. And a fastball high.
Roden, after his first inning trouble, went away from his curveball. He couldn't get it over anyway. Had a similar problem opening day up in Toronto.
There's a breaking ball, rolled softly to short. Meacham scoops and throws and doesn't get it. Infield hit for Molitor.
There's been a problem spot. This is the third consecutive game that Meacham has started at shortstop. Rafael Santana had come over from the Mets. What does he do the first game in Yankee Stadium? Didn't do a triple play. That won't make many friends. Then with Roden pitching, 19-7 loss, the only Yankees loss, he botched up, 17-9 loss, he botched up a double play pivot, and the gates were open, so he is not a Billy Martin favorite. They had a kid named Velarde, Randy Velarde, that they called up to Toronto for just 2 days, but I understand a deal for Santana to the Phillies fell through, so Velarde went back to Columbus without being activated.
Molitor stole 45 a year ago. He swiped 4 through 9 Brewer games this year. Yount, who doubled in the first. Closer this time.
8 pair of eyes, all in dark blue jackets, watching the discernible stop. Rick Roden. Larry McCoy, the home plate umpire.
Pitch out. Nothing doing. It's getting to where the umpires will become household names instead of the anonymous men in blue they once were.
The league is so far behind the American League at this point in balks called. They set a record last year for balks called in the National League, and they had started calling the stop more often last year, so their pitchers have already been indoctrinated through 1 year. The American Leaguers are first learning about it.
Well, there were 5 called against the Brewers last Sunday at Yankee Stadium. 4 called against them yesterday, 3 against the starter Mike Birkbeck. Tom Trebelhorn says plainly, yeah, it's true. If they're going to call it, technically, we have been guilty. I can't dispute that. And I've told my pitchers now, just be more aware of it. If you have to come to the belt, these are treble horns words. If you have to come to the belt and say to yourself, I love all umpires before delivering, then do it.
Gee, he's awfully patient and calm about that, telling you that. He was out in the field yesterday, came close to getting thrown out. Here is the intent is something that is always argued. They say discernible stop. That is subjective. Each umpire has what a discernible stop is amount of time. But you really got to look at the intent. About 90% of the time, sometimes 100% of the time, a pitcher has no thought of deceiving the runner. He wants to get the hitter. It says that if there is doubt in the umpire's mind, the intent of the pitcher should govern. Now, there is a rule, so that's a little contradictory. So the umpires are saying 1,001, and some are saying 1,001. Most often, there's no intent to deceive the runner.
Larry McCoy is the plate umpire. Drew Coble at first. Tim McClelland at second. And the crew chief, Don Denkinger, is at third. 2-1 pitch to Yount. 3 balls and a strike.
But I feel in this ball situation, it's just really driving not only pitchers crazy, but managers and executives. And umpires got to use some common sense. Now, he's been told by the Rules Committee, and I'm sure the Rules Committee has got to be embarrassed to death by what's happened thus far. There are no umpires on the Rules Committee. There are some who just counsel a little bit, but not officially on it. But they've got to use some common sense in this.
That's a ball! That's a ball!
They're screaming from the Yankee dugout, or rather from the Brewer dugout, I should say, that was a balk.
Trying to counteract all the balks being called against them. Do they further make a travesty of the game by not pitching as quickly as they might? Games have gotten longer because of this.
He goes on 3-1, and here's a high drive to left. Back goes Henderson. This one is gone. Yount has doubled and homered. Put this one together with Brock's 3-run shot, 5-zip Brewers. And what you're hearing more and more around the dugouts and the batting cages is that the concentration on the balk rule isn't so much going to increase steals, it's going to increase hitting because you become so distracted, you forget to work on the hitter.
Roden goes 3 balls and a strike. This is not just a small home run. That baby went about 430, to say the least. Without any help from the wind. And heading for the Hall of Fame, Robin Yount.
Think so?
Oh, he's going to get it over 3,000 hits by the time he's finished. An excellent shortstop till the shoulder went. Now an excellent center fielder. He just had to get the publicity come out of Milwaukee. Just asked Henry Aaron about that when he played here.
Well, the interesting thing about Yount, you're right, he's really going to have the chance to pile up the numbers because he won't be 33 until September, and he's already in his 15th Major League season.
He has been a quality base runner, base stealer when you need it. Clutch hitter. He's a winning type player.
Called third strike to Surhoff, but additional damage has been done, and we'll be right back after these messages from your local station. This is Chris Bossio's first career start against the Yankees. He appeared 4 times in relief against them in '87. 4 2/3 innings of total work, during which he struck out 9 and allowed only 1 hit and no earned runs. The last time the Brewers won, back on April 6th at Baltimore, Bosio was the winning pitcher, a 3-1 victory. Since then, he went to Fenway Park and pitched well and lost 3-1 to the Red Sox.
Bosio read these stat sheets before the game just like we did and saw that in the 5 prior games to this one, the Yankees had scored 18 runs in the first inning. He knew he had to shut them down early. And shutting them down early means getting Ricky Henderson out for a change. Slaught
is merely hitting .500 on 12 of 24. And the Brewers have felt the brunt of that hot streak. He was 4 for 4 against them last Sunday in New York. Had a successful suicide squeeze bunt yesterday, and then an 8th inning homer off Chuck Krim.
Billy Martin's teams always try a lot, but not like they have over the past 6-7 games. Bunting and running, this may...
Well hit to left, and this is going to get the Yankees on the board. Another home run for Slaught, his second in as many at-bats. And the onslaught continues. He's over 500.
When Lou Piniella went out and got Don Slaught, he's the general manager. Last year he was the manager, as you know. He looked at a lot of tape to see if Don Slaught was shy from having had his jaw fractured, wore the plexiglass on the left side for a while, to see if he would flinch. You see right here, he doesn't flinch. Fastball right down the middle.
And, of course, with the 5-0 lead, Basios thought, get ahead of the hitters. Slaught jumps on the fastball. A ball high to Meacham.
Well, you can ruin the pattern. You want to get ahead, but you want to get ahead with some kind of quality pitch. It's easy to say for the sabermetricians and Bill James, if you get ahead, you count, you have such an advantage of the pitcher. But they don't factor in there how many times you say, let me get ahead, and the guy cracks one on it.
So here's Slaught, riding perhaps the greatest hot streak of his career. Coming out of spring training, he wasn't even sure of his status. Meacham tries to bunt and fouls it off. Then they release Rick Cerrone. He's since been picked up by the Red Sox, and Joel Skinner continued to struggle at the plate. The job now belongs to Slaught. Texas beat Boston again. Beat him yesterday when Incaviglia threw out Barrett at the plate with the potential tying run on the game's last play, and 2-0 today. The home runs in the 8th by Carter and Howard Johnson. Mets come back and beat the Cards 6-4. And Houston over the Reds. Did Meacham hold up? They check it first, and he did. 2-2.
Billy Martin, Bobby's one of the only managers I know who has a must bunt for a base hit sign. You say sacrifice and other things. Check swing, he held it back enough. But all through this streak the Yankees have been on, he's had guys bunting to keep innings alive. Keeping the defense on him, keeping him tight at the corner, start things off, middle of rallies.
Bobby Meacham has taken over, at least for the time being. They have a youngster named Randy Velarde at Columbus that they think very highly of. But with Santana in the doghouse, and I mean deep in the doghouse, it's Meacham's job for the time being. The 3-2 pitch. Walked him. I'm sure Meacham can sympathize with Santana, however. And he's a guy who made a couple of errors in Texas. They not only sent him out the next morning, this is a couple of years ago, they demoted him 2 levels to AA. And he was on that Columbus shuttle a year ago between AAA and the majors. So he knows that you can quickly fall into disfavor with the Yankees.
Well, Wayne Tollison, who played shortstop for the good part of the year last year, had shoulder surgery. He is recovering in Florida. There's Rafael Santana. He's come out very strongly saying they don't want me here, then I don't want to play here. Bosio has walked 2 in this ball game already. Now, he is pitching on 3 days rest because of Teddy Higuera. Higuera was supposed to pitch yesterday, could not pitch, sore back. Today he said he felt better, but they want to give him the extra day. So Bosio, who in his first 2 complete games, only 2 starts, walked no and has walked 2 in the first 3 innings.
And Henderson takes high.
Bosio volunteered to go on 3 days rest. Big and strong. He said it's early. We'll see if it affects him during the course of the ball game.
His last time out, a loss at Fenway. He pitched 8 innings, allowed only 8 hits, struck out 5, and as you say, walked nobody. And prior to that, he had beaten Baltimore 3-1. So he started strong. Bouncing ball to short. Swain juggles it. He won't have time to get anybody.
Ball bounced up on it. It'll still be an error. It looked like a sure 2, but with Henderson running, you never know. He waits on the ball, just boxed it off the heel of the glove. Swain 2 years ago started the season at third base and just couldn't play there. Made a lot of errors, lost his confidence. Last year at shortstop, he did a good job. He just waited on it too much.
At third base in 86. We see how many he kicked at shortstop in 87, but in 86, in barely over 80 games, he made 30 errors at third base. He had the worst fielding percentage for a third baseman since Germany's Schaefer in 1902. They moved into short, which in most senses is the more difficult position to play, and he did better.
He doesn't have great range, but he was very, very steady last year. Makes the play from the hole.
Randolph hits one toward the hole, but there's Riles. Double clutches, and that's all they get on a wicked
He's calling both
slide.
They're both out. Henderson, right. Here, Billy. Good call by the second base umpire, Tim McClellan. Billy's going to argue. And he'll lose the old line. What is this, a tea party? As soon as the throw is made, Henderson did a roadblock, and he did not end up able to touch some part of the second base bag. It's a play that is not called very often, but as soon as you go into that roll, it's a good play. A good call by Tim McClellan. Riles did hang up his second baseman, Gantner, because it got stuck in his glove and gave him a little bit of change-up, giving Ricky Henderson with that speed an extra step or two. But as soon as he went in the roll and went to the outfield side of the bag and wasn't able to be in contact, that's what the rule says, folks. So I guess if they're going to call the discernible stop, they're going to start calling that one, too. It's going to help a few second basemen.
Well, if they start calling everything by the letter of the law, look at this first.
Watch where Ricky ends up. There's the roll block now. Interpretation, the umpires say, wasn't that bad. Ricky got up with the roll, but still, the roll block is still something they do not want. That's where the knee and the football-like clip tears the knee up.
It was the action of the roll block itself rather than the fact that he went out of his way to do it. He was making a beeline for the bag. So in that sense, he was on solid ground. But then when he continued through the slide and made it the roll block, that's what did it.
And a second baseman is at the man off first mercy, especially in a first and second situation where you can get the extra lead. So they said, they called the double play. They send Meacham back to second base. That's a gutsy call that isn't called very much, but I think it's the proper one. It'll save some second baseman's legs. Rod Crew got hit that way. Dick McCall, on and on.
So Henderson and Randolph are erased on the DP call, and Meacham, who would ordinarily have advanced to third, is put back at second, and that brings up Mattingly, who flied to deep center his first time up. Now looking for his first homer of the '88 season. Takes a ball. I started to say, if they're going to call everything according to the letter of the law, that's fine. But the phantom double play has got to be next. And then after that, the first baseman coming off the bag to meet the throw on a close play.
You can get as silly as you want if you're going to enforce the letter of the law. Like keep the coaches in the boxes. The coaches' boxes at third and first.
Here's a fly ball to right. Rags will have a beat on it. And the Yankees settle for one on the slot home run. As we go to the bottom of the third. And unhappy Billy sees his Yanks trailing 5-1.
The old Yankee way, Tony. Pride, desire, will to win, self-sacrifice, doing things for the ball club, not just for yourself. And to all my friends out there, I love you too.
Billy learned to sign for the deaf and dumb. As he said, they want to be called dummies. The place he's spoken, but he's called.
Meacham is able to recover on a well-hit ball by Brock and throw him out. So that'll bring up Rob Deere with one out and nobody on in the last half of the third.
A couple of years ago, this was not a pleasant infield to play on, but really, they've done a lot of work here. The grass is in good shape, even this early in the season where they've had cool weather. And the dirt portion seems to be okay, but there seem to be a couple tricky hops thus far. Swayham Gowan had an error, and that one bounced up a little bit on Meacham. Notice I protect those shortstops.
And a swing and a miss by Deere, who followed his first inning single with a stolen base and then was left stranded. Breaking ball drops in for a strike. Last year, Deere fanned an American League record 186 times. In the last two seasons, he's hit 61 homers, 28 of them last year, but struck out 365 times. 1-2.
He will go after a lot of bad pitches. He swings so hard. You make some mistakes if you hang a curveball, don't have something on it with a fastball inside. He usually gets himself out. I mean, so many hitters, it's been going on forever. It's nothing new, although they are striking out at record paces last year and perhaps again this year. Strike out on pitches out of the strike zone.
3 strikeouts now for Roden. Roden was the loser in the only Yankee defeat of the year, that 17-9 fiasco at Toronto. Got a 3-0 lead, but then with the help of some leaky defense, gave it back in the bottom half of the first as Toronto scored 6 times. Prior to that, Roden had hurled a shutout against the Twins in the opener. Bragg struck out in the first. He had a homer off Tommy John for the Brewers' only run in a 7-1 defeat yesterday. In the air to right, Winfield almost in his tracks, puts it away. 3 complete at County Stadium in Milwaukee on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Very windy and chilly here yesterday. Today, sunny, around 60 degrees, and the Brewers are smiling. It'll be Clark, Paliarulo, and Winfield in the 4th, with the Yankees trailing 5-1. Jack, who made his first appearance of the season yesterday and got an RBI single in his first at-bat, struck out here in the 2nd. He saw his old Cardinal teammates lose in the opener on NBC, 6-4 to the Mets. Breaking ball low. You might have heard the story about Clark calling Whitey Herzog after he signed with the Yankees to let Whitey know he was putting his St. Louis estate on the market. Wanted to give Whitey first crack at it. 1-1. The Rat said, hey, wait a minute, Jack. I can't afford your old house, and with you gone, I won't even be able to afford the house I've got.
Watch his right foot. Very unique. He's not doing that to protect the ankle. He's always done that.
1-2.
As the pitcher goes into his motion, in fact, the ball is all but released. He says he does that to remind himself not to open up too soon. That keeps him close so he doesn't pull off the ball. He doesn't want his hips to get too quick.
In the dirt, 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Jack will see more breaking balls in this league. Interesting to see how he handles the DH. Not actively playing in the field at first base or right field as he did with the Giants. Sometimes it's an adjustment. There's Paliarulo. Boy, they are deep in this Yankee lineup. You got Winfield batting 6th. They've driven in 100 runs 5 of the last 6 years. That's how much power this team has.
It holds at 2-2. You know, it's interesting that Clark was offended when the Cardinals suggested that he wasn't a great all-around player. Great hitter, but perhaps not a great defensive first baseman. So his move is to come over and sign with the Yankees, where he'll be a DH almost exclusively. What better definition of a one-dimensional player? But that one dimension is devastating in Clark's case. Strikes out for the 2nd time today.
Something he will see more of, we talked about. Almost looked like a forkball. It wasn't a slider. Talking to Chuck Hartenstein about Bosio, he said, sometimes he scares me. He said, I show him one thing, and he picks it up so fast. He said, he'll go out there someday and throw 8 different pitches. A couple different kinds of fastballs, the hard slider, curve, straight change, an occasional split finger. Catches on fast.
Paliarulo is quickly retired, and as Winfield comes up, let's get his comments on a recent newspaper article in the New York Daily News, which said that his Winfield Foundation was under investigation for improprieties.
There were statements made about my foundation, and they were completely unfounded, completely untrue. I didn't like that. I've been trying to focus on baseball, and it's just in the back of my mind right now. I know we do very good work. I'll leave it at that, but I don't forget.
Well, he's made his early season statement with his bat. Came in at .459 with a major league leading 17 RBIs. Glenn Davis of Houston leads the National League with 15. He might have tacked a few on today as Houston beat the Reds 8-2. Bossio's 1-0 pitch. In there, 1-1. Winfield had driven home better than 100 5 straight years. Last year dipped to 97, but still hit .355 with runners in scoring position. So he was coming through when the opportunities presented themselves. Remember, Henderson was out of the lineup for a long stretch, a guy who scores a lot of runs. And Mattingly hit 6 Grand Slam home runs, usually batting directly ahead of Winfield, so a lot of RBI opportunities evaporated.
Well, Randolph was out after the knee surgery after the All-Star game. Mattingly with the back was out, 3-4 weeks. Winfield was moved up out of the cleanup spot at the end of the year. Otherwise, he would have had 6 straight.
Top of the 4th, 5-1 Milwaukee. 3-run homer by Brock, 2-run shot by Young.
I wonder how Winfield can concentrate on baseball at all with all the controversies running around. The boss on
He
his
went
case.
around. So Bossio now has fanned 4. We go to the last of the 4th, 5-1 Milwaukee. Today's game is brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors, who invite you to come see the full line of cars and trucks. Mitsubishi, suddenly the obvious choice. Well, the Brewers are trying to snap a 7-game losing streak, and they lead as they come to bat here in the 4th, 5-1. Over the last year and a half, they have to be the streakiest team in all of baseball. You throw in Molitor's 39-game hitting streak, and there was the 13-0 start. Eventually, they went to 20-3, then proceeded to lose 12 in a row, and 18 of the next 20. Talk about peaks and valleys.
Even the pennant year for the Brewers, and when the old Braves were here with Aaron Matthews, Spahn, and the other Hall of Famers, there couldn't have been a more exciting year than last year. I mean, the fans just went absolute bananas here. There were so many game-winning hits late for this ball club at home.
Riles has started against Roden. Couldn't catch up with the fastball. Even Molitor wasn't immune to the roller coaster syndrome. Right after the 39-game hitting streak ended, he went 9 for 57. Gantner and Swaim will follow here in the 4th. 1-2. There's Paul. Called strike 3. So let's add him up for Roden. That's his 4th strikeout.
Perhaps it's too late, but he does get a curveball over here, something he struggled with earlier. It is not a cool day. So the umpires, who have been asked, or the rule book mandates, they call a different strike zone, give Roden a low strike.
Randolph makes the play, and Gantner is retired on 1 pitch. 2 up and 2 down in the Milwaukee 4th.
Shortstop, Dale Swain.
It looks a little bit lumpy today. Some of the balls that are being boxed around out there.
So here's Swaim, who flied to right and is only at bat. An unexpected power source for the Brewers a year ago when he hit 25 homers and drove in 95.
He was in the right place at the right time last spring. Riles cut his hand. He was going to be the opening day shortstop. Then Swaim and Diaz were fighting for the job. Diaz got hurt his shoulder, and Swaim opened and had a nice year for him. Better than nice. I think they got a lot more offensive production than they thought. Extremely close stance. The kind of stance that you would say when he hits from the left side that you want to keep the ball away, or pop the ball in rather. But he can handle that ball in there, in the fork ball.
A lot of games already completed and underway. Viola was scheduled to go for the Twins today against Todd Stottlemyre of Toronto. Wound up being a good pitching duel with Minnesota winning. Detroit over Kansas City 4-2. And Pittsburgh a shutout winner against the Cubs. Again, the scheduled starters were Drabek and Greg Maddux. How about the Pirates? Picking up right where they left off last year. They had a red-hot September.
Sid Thrift of redone the entire team in 2 years. He's the GM, and what a job he's done. A lot of youth, a lot of good arms. Well, the Dunn is down now, the disableist, one of their best starting pitchers.
5-1 Milwaukee in the last half of the fourth. 2-2 to Swain with 2 out and nobody on. Full count. Molitor on deck.
Who expected the Brewers to win 91 last year? They came from deep in the standings. Some people have a theory that after you make such a big leap in winning ball games as they did with 91 last year, that you have a tumble off and tail off the year after that. Let's see if it happens to this young team.
Fouled off. Well, Treblehorn says, sure, some things broke our way last year. We had some extraordinary things happen in our favor. But the fact remains that we won 91 games. We didn't do it with mirrors. And we console ourselves with that thought right now. We've lost 7 of our first 9, yes. But the people in this clubhouse know we have a good ball club.
They have the nucleus of a good starting staff. And you go along with Teddy Higuera, Juan Nieves, who pitched the no-hitter last year. He is up and down. Basio with his arm. Plesac out of the bullpen. Clear did a good job for them last year. So they've got some good young arms. And Chuck Hartenstein, Treblehorn's pitching coach, had them throwing a lot of off-speed stuff early in the count when they're behind the end last year.
A comebacker speared by Roden. He sets the Brewers down in order in the fourth, and we'll be right back after these messages from your local station. The bat and the initials HK on the Brewers sleeves this season in honor and memory of Harvey Keene, American League batting champion in 1959. Managed Harvey's wall bangers to the American League pennant in 1982 and a narrow World Series loss against St. Louis. Harvey's widow Audrey threw out the first ball here yesterday. In the fifth, Claudell Washington.
Harvey, one of the best athletes this city ever produced. You know, he still holds the record for high school field goal. He drop kicked 52 yards. You're too young to remember the drop kick for a field goal. Or are you?
I saw it in a Marx Brothers movie once. This one is hit down the left field line. Deer over. And in fair ground, he makes the catch.
Catcher, Don Slott.
Here's Don Slott, who has the only Yankee hit off Basio, his second homer of the year. He has 13 hits in 25 at-bats this season. He doesn't yet have enough turns at bat to qualify to be on the league leaders list. Pete O'Brien, one of the most underrated players in baseball, the Rangers first baseman, leads the majors right now, hitting .531 through the first week and a half. And a ball in the dirt. Again, we remind you that we'll select the NBC Miller Lite player of the game, as always, when it's over with. Meacham on deck as Basio delivers the 1-0 pitch. Ground ball to short. Here's Swain. Kicked one earlier, not this time. 2 out.
Swain's fielding style is so relaxed. Remember we saw him last year when we got here, up to that 13-game winning streak. One hand.
He was blowing bubbles with his bazooka as he fielded the ball. Meacham drew a walk in the third.
Excuse me, Bob. He's going a little bit more perhaps to a sinker ball, realizing that if he went with a power fastball and a hard slider, having coming back on 3 days rest, he might be worn out. And he maybe is trying to make them put the ball into place, sinking the ball a little bit more. So we'll have something left for the end.
Candelaria tomorrow for the Yanks. Undecided on the sheet right now for the Brewers. I guess it would be Higuera if he felt well enough. Yanks would catch a break if they missed Higuera in the series. He's 7-1 lifetime against them. Here comes the 1-1.
He has such an easy delivery, Basio. Kind of pauses up at the top and plants on that right leg. Doesn't rush. Sneaky fast when he wants to be, and obviously hides the ball well. Is swinging at a lot of bad breaking pitches, although this background here in Milwaukee during day baseball is not a good one. Come right out of the sky. And a little shadow over the plate right now.
Back through the middle, Swaim near the bag. So Basio cruises through the fifth to the bottom half of the inning. 5-1 Milwaukee. It's a beautiful day in Milwaukee, but these young fans apparently aren't convinced that the cold streak is over yet for the Brewers. Now, so much of a slump or a hot streak can be circumstantial. Talking to Treblehorn before the game, I recalled how they began their season last year, winning 13 straight. The first series was against the Red Sox, and for various reasons, neither Boyd, Clemens, nor Hurst were available. They faced and beat the 4th, 5th, and 6th best pitchers. Then they played Texas, and the Rangers had started slowly, and Baltimore, and the Orioles were terrible last year. Now, granted, the Brewers were playing very well as Molitor fouls one off, but they were also able to catch teams at the right time and build momentum and confidence. This year, they catch the Yankees in the first week, and we know what New York has done. Then they go into Boston and they lose to Boyd, Hurst, and Clemens in succession, despite getting pretty good pitching of their own. Next thing you know, you're in a 7-game losing streak.
What they did at the end of the season, though, shocked the heck out of the Toronto Blue Jays. They went up to Toronto. Toronto, of course, had a 3.5-game lead with 7 games to play. Had a couple of injuries, and Doyle Alexander got hot for the Tigers. But they swept, and that really killed the Toronto Blue Jays. So they played well against good teams at the end. They don't win 91 by all luck. They played very well, had very timely hitting, and they did that end of that season last year with Plesac out. He couldn't pitch out of the bullpen. He was their big closer.
The 1-2 pitch to Molitor. Yeah, Plesac injured his elbows, shagging fly balls in August, and he was pretty close to worthless after that. Right about the same time that Roden was hit in the right shoulder by a line drive off the bat of Alvin Davis of Seattle, and Roden saw his chance to win 20 go down the drain as he was ineffective after that. He wound up 16-10, equaling his career high for victories. Still 2-2. Remember the name John Farrell. He's the young Cleveland pitcher who stopped Molitor's streak. Held him to 0 for 4 one August night here, and the streak ended at 39. Molitor was in the on-deck circle when Rick Manning delivered the game-winning hit. He never got a 5th chance.
Manning was booed a lot
in his own
ball game. He's no longer with the team. No, that doesn't really do it.
Another 2-2 pitch from Roden to Molitor. And a line drive to right that'll drop in.
Treblehorn loves to run, especially with Molitor. In fact, how much does Treblehorn like to run? Remember when he was in the Oakland A's organization? He managed Modesto in 1977, and Treblehorn had on that team a young fellow named Ricky Henderson, who stole 95 for him. And Henderson, instead of Tom Treblehorn, he taught me more about base stealing and playing this game than anybody since.
Now here's Yount, who's doubled and homered off Roden. Everybody thinking balk. We haven't had one called yet today. There he goes. Yount bluffs the bunt. The throw is offline into center field. Molitor picks himself up and heads to third. Stolen base on an error for Sloan.
You could almost see Roden was still looking out of the corner of his eye. It was not an easy pitch to throw on a slider down and away. He wasn't going to get Molitor anyway, and he just basically let the ball ride high. Perhaps didn't have a good grip. Now he's on third, and the infield will be forced to come in.
It's much too early to view these results as definitive, but it's interesting to note that steals have not gone up with the increased balk costs. They're actually slightly down over this time last year. Of course, a lot of guys are being balked to second base and losing the opportunity to steal.
Plus, the truer indicator would be, I believe, percentage of success for steals. Is the percentage going up?
The answer to that is not much. Almost identical. Infield comes in, and he outfouls it off.
And here's where it changes. There might have been a time when some pitchers, especially the great stoppers in the past, it was Suter who started, I believe, pitching from the stretch at all times. More pitchers have gone to pitching from the stretch with a man on third base now, but they are so fearful from the stretch of being called for a balk at this point. So what that does, they go from a windup. You've got more of a chance of a steal at home, squeeze play, quicker jump because you get a bigger lead off third base where you can score an infield out. So it changes a lot of things on third base.
0-2 pitch. Slot blocks it.
Same thing right there. A short pass ball, wild pitch. With a bigger lead off third base, you'll be able to score a little bit easier. Nice play by Slot. We'll show it to you again. Overthrew a breaking ball, and Slot got the body out in front of it.
Of course, remember, Slot was catching for Texas last year, and they have Charlie Huff with the knuckleball. Undoubtedly, a large percentage of those 20 pass balls came with Huff pitching. Still 1-2 to Yount. What a spot for Roden. He already trails 5-1. Molitor at third, nobody out. The infield forced to come in, making it all the easier for Yount, who's worn him out with a double and a homer. Inside 2-2. Very quietly, Yount hit .312 with 21 homers and 103 RBIs last year. 6'8" Lee Guterman, who had a good year last year for the Mariners, is up in the Yankee bullpen.
Since Robin Yount had the sore shoulder and had the surgery a couple of times, his power has diminished. It's more to right field now.
Over his head, 3-2.
Can't get your breaking ball over when you're a Roden-like pitcher who's not overpowering, you have big trouble, and that's what he's had today. We've seen how many curveballs and sliders he's bounced, thrown away out of the strike zone. The only breaking ball he's been able to get over is one where he drops down a little bit. It's just like a flat roundhouse curveball just to throw it for a strike.
Surhoff is on deck, and then Brock. The payoff. Walked him. Was ahead of him 0-2 and let him go. For those of you outside New York, it might be your first look at Billy this year. You're trying to figure out what's different. Gone is the mustache.
Has new bride Jill calmed him down?
Is that a rhetorical question, or
Yes.
do you expect an answer from me?
He's been really kind of easygoing and mellow. Of course, they're winning all the time.
Ball 1 to Surhoff. Neither Billy nor his pitcher, with Brock on deck, is in a mood to celebrate right now. But a month from today, they'll each celebrate a birthday. Roden will be 35, and Billy turns 60 on May 16th. Hard to believe, isn't it? Billy the Kid, 60 years old. The 1-0. Inside 2-0 to Surhoff, who's walked and struck out.
BJ runs very well, too. Played middle infielder. We're signing him. Made him a catcher. Played third, as Bob told you yesterday. From the left side, it's going to be tough to double him up, and I'm really surprised that they're playing with this score, even though it is the fifth, that deep in the middle of the diamond. Now they're creeping in. It's a Billy Martin kind of play.
Balk!
Oh, man.
Drew Coble with the call.
Roden has been so careful the entire game. In fact, some of his discernible stops have lasted 4, 5, 6 seconds. Again, what is the intent here? Yount is on first base. He might steal. This is regular speed.
That doesn't.
No,
the discernible stop rule doesn't pertain there because he didn't come to the plate.
Well, what he must have done is it must have been a jump twirl, so he did not step to the base. So they're not only calling the non-stop, discernible stop when you go home, but apparently he jumped instead of stepping with his front foot toward first base. So that jump move, which has been called in the National League by most umpires, watch it. That's really cutting things fine. That is really putting a terrible burden on these pitchers.
Mahler scores at 6-1. Randolph cuts this one off as Yount moves to third and throws Surhoff out. That'll bring up Brock as we look back again to the first inning. Following a double by Yount and a Surhoff walk, he cleans this one over Claudell Washington's head and into the bleachers for a 3-run homer. That got the Brewers started, and they lead 6-1 now.
Infield comes in. There was a ball call with the bases loaded here yesterday. So Yankee was sent home, and now it happens today. Art Fowler. Billy brought him back, as he did Clete Boyer. George Mitterwald. Chris Chambliss is their hitting instructor.
Just to repeat, the balk you just saw by Roden is a balk that very likely could have been called last year. It wasn't the new discernible stop brouhaha. It was the failure to stride in the direction of first base.
There's got to be some common sense when you're running a ball game. And the umpires are being asked, being told to call these things, but the flow of the game is gone, and a lot of people are getting very upset.
Watch it again.
The rule says you must step directly toward the bag to which you are throwing. Well, what he did was he moved his right foot first, and they may have called that saying, you almost can't just move your left foot first without getting the right foot because it's pinned against the rubber, and it gets to be a silly call.
Inside the Brock.
I mean, if they start calling it every time there's a man on first base with a left-handed pitcher, when he decoys with his right leg or with his head and goes home, it's got to be a ball call, too, because he's trying to deceive the runner.
Yankee infield in again, and Slaught has to go to his knees to prevent a wild pitch. 6 runs, 6 hits, and an error for the Brewers. 1 run on their lone hit, Slaught's homer, and an error for the Yanks. A run home here in the 5th. Man at third, 1 out. 3-0.
When are they going to stop picking on pitchers?
Well, that's an interesting thing. They changed the interpretation of the strike zone in theory to help the pitchers, but that's been overshadowed by the new interpretation of the balk rule, which is killing them. And there's a walk.
And yet there have been umpires who have come out with the new strike zone, midpoint between the belt and the shoulders, what they're talking about, saying that they've umpired so long that they're having difficulty changing. And they say, wait a second, guys, this is mandated in the books. You're supposed to change. A pitcher has to change after pitching, as Tommy John has for 25 years in the bigs. You should have to also. Way back in '68 when Gibson had the great ERA and then Drysdale with the 6+ consecutive shutouts and then McClain with 30. Everything's gone against pitchers. Seems like.
Deere is 1 for 2. He struck out his last time. Roden could use the strikeout or the double play ball here. Might get it, but Taggs boots it. And he has only 1 play. That's at first, and he got him there. But another run scores. If he played it cleanly, they could have gotten 2 and been out of the inning. Instead, give Deere an RBI, and it's 7-1.
4 times in this ball game, twice in short with Swain, once with Randolph, and now Pagliarulo, where they haven't caught a ball cleanly.
That'll bring up Braggs, who's 0 for 2. Yanks have won 4 in a row and 9 of their first 10. Brewers have dropped 7 straight, but lead here 7-1.
how much did that ball call change the inning? We will never know. Surhoff hit a ground ball to the right side. Would it have been a double play of things? I mean, the ball has replaced the... There's Tim Stoddard begins throwing, joins Guterman. But the ball has replaced the missed cutoff man as the quickest way to take away a double play situation.
Interesting thing about the balk, we heard it all through spring training. We're going to call it like crazy till we drill the point home. And then in the first week of the season, we'll keep calling it till they get the idea. Well, the pitchers aren't learning so fast. Steve Horn of our staff did some checking. There's actually been about a 25% increase in the number of balks called in the American and National Leagues in the second week of the season as compared to the first. Hit softly, but it might drop. Randolph back, can't get it. The 8th run is being waved home on the hit by Glenn Braggs. The Brewers bust out of it in a big way as Brock comes across. It's 8-1.
Roden tried to get the ball inside, a fastball about belt high, and Braggs is an extremely strong young man. Tony Muser, the third base coach and hitting instructor, has asked him to go the opposite way. He said, get yourself jammed. You can flare some of those balls, but if you open up too soon, you can't even reach the outside part of the plate. Bragg started catching on the end of last year.
Riles has flied to left and struck out. So Roden, who pitched a 3-hitter over the Twins, an 8-0 victory on opening day, is in danger, definite danger, of being a losing pitcher in the only 2 Yankee defeats of the year, if in fact they lose this one. Riles skies one to left. Henderson glides back. And the 5th inning is history, but not before the Brewers score 3 times. And if you're just joining us, put 1 up on the box scoreboard. We'll be back. Join us next week for the Major League Baseball Game of the Week. As some of you will see, National League MVP Andre Dawson and the Cubs taking on the Pirates in Pittsburgh, while others will watch these very same Brewers at home here at County Stadium against the Red Sox next week on NBC.
The grounds crew has their Lederhosen on.
Yes, but we must still lament the departure of Bernie Brewer, who used to sit out there in the giant beer keg with those Lederhosen on and slide down after a Brewer home run.
That added to the Gemütlichkeit here in this area.
Certainly did. Henderson, Randolph, and Mattingly in the Yankee 6th. Gemütlichkeit meaning a general feeling of high-spiritedness and well-being. Would that be it?
I think so.
Something the Yankees are not enjoying at this point.
Basio has allowed just 1 base hit.
That a homer in the 3rd by Slaught. Check swing, and it might, no, it won't drop. Braggs is there, and he makes the catch. So Rickey officially is 0 for 3. He reached on an error in the 3rd. As a matter of fact, Basio, since Henderson reached, has retired 10 in a row.
When you see hitters do that, and Henderson, of course, has a good eye, does take some walks, it's an indication they're not seeing the ball well. He's not taking it away from Basio because he looks like he's got good stuff. And with this background and the sun to shadow at times, you hitters have to start their bat a little sooner. When you start it sooner, you're going to swing at bad pitches. When you check your swing, you're going to see those kinds of flares and the ball put in play at times.
Here's one wrapped to short. Swaim is up with it. So much for Willie Randolph.
I'm impressed with Swaim's range to his left. He seems to prefer going in that direction. Fastball, he knew it. Pitch less likely to pull the bat of Willie Randolph. He was leaning in that direction. Really, the ball hit rather sharply. He took 4 or 5 steps to get in front of it almost.
So Mattingly bats with the bases empty and 2 out in the 6th. And takes a strike. He's flied to deep center and then skied to right. Came in hitting .262. Down to 250 now.
Not unusual for him. His career stats for April and May are about 286, 87, and the rest of the year after May, he hits about 350 lifetime.
He's 331 lifetime overall, which happens to be the lifetime average of Stan Musial, although the man did it in over 20 seasons. And Mattingly appears headed in that sort of direction. First 4 seasons. Impressive. And this one is taken to the opposite field and drops in for a hit.
There's not another team in Major League Baseball that has as many Major League record holders on their roster. You look at Ricky Henderson, 130 stolen bases, Major League record. Rick Getty, 46 saves, Major League record. Mattingly with the grand slams you talk about. There's Ricky, who doesn't know if he'll get the record this year. If Billy lets him run and he stays healthy, he may go for the record, as will Vince Coleman. Mattingly ties a Major League record, 8 home runs in 8 consecutive ball games.
What Henderson definitely does have a chance to do is overtake Lou Brock for the career stolen base record. If he stays healthy, he's almost a cinch to do it. But then Coleman will be right on his heels. Clark has struck out twice.
Clark, I would guess, is trying to learn not just the addition of more breaking balls thrown to him, but the DH, as we talked about, but learn American League umpires. You don't learn that in spring training. You get a mix of National American League umpires to see what their strike zone is and how they vary their individual strike zone. Are they going to call them away? Are they going to call them low? What are they going to call upstairs? That's why so many times there's a big adjustment from one league to the other for the hitter.
0-2 to Clark. Last year, Jack struck out 139 times and walked 136 for the Cardinals. He hit 286 overall, but when he put the ball in play, minus the walks and the strikeouts, he hit 429. 1-2.
Jack Clark was down in Florida, and he was taking batting practice off 2 pitchers who are disabled, Neil Allen, the right-hander, and Ron Guidry, the left-hander. And he said both of them are throwing very well. They are close to coming back. And it caused some pleasant problems for Lou Piniella and Billy Martin. And when they get Tollison back, they're going to have to make some roster adjustments.
Well, they made an adjustment when they activated Clark. Sent the highly regarded youngster Jay Buhner back to Columbus. 1-2 pitch.
It's a different Yankee team and a different look in that they've only got 4 left-handed hitters on the roster. Ordinarily, because of the short porch in Yankee Stadium, you see them stacked with left-handed hitters. They're going to Pasqua go. What about Cruz is there now? Cheo won the club in spring training. Tommy John with his sunglasses next to him, who just keeps going on. What's Tommy now? 45, 46? I can't keep track. It's an outstanding game again yesterday.
Suffice to say, he was once traded for Rocky Colavito. Puts it in perspective. And now the count goes full to Clark.
Well, we've got time. There's one thing I want to correct. Earlier on, when we showed a tape of Dave Winfield, and we talked about an article in the Daily News that Howard Cosell wrote, somehow it put Steinbrenner's comments. George Steinbrenner did not make those comments in that article, so that wasn't unfair to Mr. Steinbrenner. Cosell wrote the thing, which Winfield was very upset at.
Mattingly takes off, and Clark held up.
Surhoff was running into the dugout, thought it was strike 3.
They don't get the call this time, and Clark draws a 2-out walk, pushing Mattingly to second. Judge for yourself.
Check the swing, and it was out of the strike zone. Again, what the umpire will read into that is the intent of the hitter. Some say, well, did he break the wrist? Did he go across home plate? The intent of Jack Clark was not to swing, but you get different umpires will approach that a little differently.
Rulo has walked and grounded out. Ball 1 to him. Bosio has struck out 4, and he has now walked 3. He's allowed 2 hits, the slot homer, and Mattingly's single in this inning. It's 8-1 Milwaukee, top half of the 6th.
They've gotten a lot out of Bosio to this point against a power-laden team. He got runs early. More often than not, he's been able to throw strikes and get ahead. He has walked a few more than he is used to. He's got pretty good control, so they know the pitch count. Chuck Hartenstein, the pitching coach, they're going to get somebody going. They want this game to get away.
It's softly to left. Deere got a late start. He started back, and he dives and can't come up with it. A run scores as Mattingly comes across. Clark stops at third. Deere just froze on that ball when it first came off the bat, and Paliarulo gets a gift single.
It was a hard swing that was not hit squarely. He froze. The sun may have had an effect. The second base umpire, Tim McClellan, runs out in the short left center field, and he makes an excellent call. Second good call that the hustler McClellan has made. Called Henderson out on a roadblock slide, and Deere tries to decoy him, but didn't fool Tim McClellan.
So it's 8-2. And without trying to overstate the likelihood of a Yankee comeback here, their chances are still slim. Yankee fans remember that last year they trailed Roger Clemens and the Red Sox 9-0 and came back to win 12-11. They trailed the Twins in another game 7-0 in the 7th and won. And they beat Toronto 15-14 on a Winfield grand slam off Henke. So they've had some big comebacks. Pop to the right side. Bragg's coming in toward the line. Has it. Yanks get a run on a walk and a couple of singles, but trail 8-2 as we move to the last half of the 6th. Bosio was in some moderate danger in the 6th. He got Winfield to fly out to end the inning, and there's his reaction. Meanwhile, the Yankees have a new pitcher. Roden is finished, and Tim Stoddard comes on. You saw Stoddard, who's about 6'7", maybe 6'8", warming up alongside the 6'8" Lee Guterman. Stoddard was on the North Carolina State team with David Thompson, Monty Tao, and Tom Burleson back in 1974, the team that ended the string of UCLA championships. Of course, Dave Winfield played basketball at the University of Minnesota. Last year, they traded Dennis Rasmussen, who had played at Creighton and opposed Larry Bird in college basketball, traded him to Cincinnati. Had they held on to him, even if they picked you up, they would have had a halfway decent 5.
Could have been their point guard. And I'd have played some defense. The rest of them couldn't play defense, of course.
1-2 to Gantner, starting it off in the last half of the 6th.
Stoddard's third ball game, all in relief, of course. He's got a win under his belt.
Fastball misses, 2-2.
Will the Yankee pitching hold up? Everybody said it's a bad pitching staff coming in. I don't think it's that bad. And when you play 81 games in Yankee Stadium, a forgiving ballpark on dirt and grass, your pitching staff doesn't have to be as strong as most to win it.
Reaches for it, hits it down the left field line. Henderson closes ground and takes it easily.
There's some very, very defensive swings. Let's go to Jimmy Cephalo for an update on Sportsnet.
Bob, things continue to go poorly for the Atlanta Braves. This single by Steve Sachs brought Sean Shelby around. That increased the Dodger lead to 6-3 over Atlanta. And as that game goes into the 6th, the Braves are in danger of setting a new National League record with their season-opening 10th straight loss. Back to Milwaukee.
Dark days for Chuck Tanner, Bobby Cox, and the rest of the folks in Atlanta. Here's Swain. Checks the swing and takes a ball.
Had a chance to see last year when the team began to struggle, Atlanta Braves, the last few months, how great a player Dale Murphy really is. He put perhaps his best numbers on the board last year, almost any time in his career. You wonder how sometimes.
Hit 44 homers. Earlier, we put a score on the screen that had Houston beating Cincinnati 8-2. Sorry about that, Reds fans. This turns out to be the correct score. The Reds won it 8-2. Jose Rio is now 3-1 over from Oakland. Ernie Camacho, the former Indian pitcher, loses it in relief of Bob Nepper.
Rio throws strikes. What a plus. Pete's team, Pete Rose's team, finished second 3 years in a row. They had a great bullpen to start with. Last year, you look at those numbers. Franco and Murphy and Williams et al.
Bo Diaz hit a homer for the Reds, his third, off to a hot start. Swaim hangs in there.
You see where Mrs. Schott, the owner, gave Pete Rose, start of the season, a bridesmaid veil. Walked around and joked with his players about. Finished second 3 years in a row. I bet he looked cute in it.
Yeah. Well, since the Reds are playing Houston, perhaps now is an opportune time for Mrs. Schott to swing a trade and acquire Bob Nepper. I'm sure he would love to toil for a woman in a position of authority. Either that or be dealt to the Padres, owned by Joan Kroc. 8-2 Milwaukee, last half of the sixth. Nobody on, one out, and another 2-2 pitch from Stoddard to Swaim, and he got him swinging. So up comes Molitor, who's 2 for 3 with a stolen base thrown in. He scored a couple of runs. Almost exactly the same time his 39-game hitting streak ended last August. Benito Santiago, the National League's Rookie of the Year, as it turned out, began his 34-game streak for the Padres. There wasn't as much excitement attached to that, simply because there weren't enough games left in the season. Even had Santiago continued, and he was stopped in the season's last week, not enough games for him to approach DiMaggio. So the mystique wasn't there. 2-0.
Molitor, coming through spring training, was going to be their second baseman, with Gantner moving to third. Then the shoulder injury, had to be the DH.
Hit softly into center field. Here comes Washington. It's going to drop in front of him. Molitor has 3 hits. And while we're on the subject, we might as well take care of this week's trivia question. We all know about the 56 consecutive games in 1941. And you may also know that playing in the Pacific Coast League for San Francisco in 1933, the 18-year-old DiMaggio hit in 61 straight. That was in the minors. But what was his second longest major league hitting streak after the record 56?
I know there's a man in the ballpark that is interested in that and could tell you the answer so quickly it'd boggle your mind. Kenny Keltner doesn't miss a Brewers game. He's the man who stopped Joe D's 56-game streak. Made 2 great plays at third base. He was here yesterday, somewhere today, I'm sure.
Yount skies one to right. Winfield goes back. It's carrying, but on the track, he makes the catch. Yount is retired for the first time today. He had doubled, homered, and walked prior to that. So after 6, it's 8-2, and we'll be back after these messages from your local station. So we're back at County Stadium in Milwaukee. Bob Costas along with Tony Kubek. You know, last year the Yankees played under 500 baseball on the road. They had won 4 straight on the road after an opening road loss at Toronto coming into today's game. But trail 8-2 as they come up here in the 7th with the bottom of their order, Washington, Slaught, and Meacham. You know, when Catfish Hunter was inducted into the Hall of Fame last year, Commissioner Uberoth said on the steps of the museum at Cooperstown he deserved to be enshrined simply for playing for both Charlie Finley and George Steinbrenner in one career. Well, the guy you're looking at here not only played for Finley and Steinbrenner, but also played for Ted Turner in Atlanta. Claudel has seen it all.
He was 19 years old, just turned 19 when he came up. And outstanding runner with a throwing arm. Perhaps never realized the potential regarding consistency with a bat in his hand, but he's had some good years. And he's a great role player for this team. Playing in the outfield positions, he can DH, veteran who can pinch it for you.
Hit 279 a year ago. Drove in 44 in limited duty. Still only 33 years old.
Last year with the injuries, they were forced to play people like Gary Ward and Cordell Washington more than they wanted in a starting role rather than as substitutes.
Slap to short. Swain throws him out. What's the longest hitting streak you ever had?
I have no idea.
Well, obviously, it couldn't have been all that long then, because someone would have brought it to your attention. Well, the question before the House, second longest major league hitting streak for DiMaggio after the record 56.
With agents, there's a lot more emphasis on paying attention. The agents tell you. And they're using for arbitration as far as what you did or what you should do. You know, people run around with incentives for things to try and protect themselves in certain areas, whether it's a gold glove or whatever else, and that's not good.
Slaught hitting .500, 13 for 26. Looks to bunt. It's a good one. In comes Riles. Bare hands. Doesn't get him. Throw squirts away. Slaught won't advance. It would have been a very close play, but he'll be given a base hit here.
That's one of those which may have been a called bunt by Billy Martin. He sees the third baseman Riles with one out playing way back and off the line. Basio didn't really bounce off the mound. He was not expecting it. So again, Billy trying to get something going. He had Cordell Washington taking a strike, leading off the 7th. Now he has him dropping a bunt down. It used to be called Billy Ball. Remember at Oakland, Billy didn't like the term. He said this is just good, sound, fundamental baseball. But most of what Billy does on the bases and with an offense are things that he learned from the late Casey Stengel. Casey was big on double steals, even though it wasn't a stealing era. The Yankees were a big hitting ball club.
Meacham tries to drop one himself. Well, this year's edition of the Elias Baseball Analyst has devised a formula, and under that formula, they say that this man, Billy Martin, is the greatest manager in the history of baseball. Now, everyone in baseball really respects the research done by Seymour Seiwoff and the Hurt brothers, Steve and Peter, in the Elias Baseball Analyst, but that one is going to stir some debate.
What did they say? He's worth 5 games a year because of the way, and he has a knack, and it's not very scientific. He doesn't keep computer cards like Earl Weaver did or like Davey Johnson does with computers, but it's almost like an art form with Billy, setting up a lineup, and that's why he scores early in ball games so often, although not today. He stacks hitters together with high on-base averages and does different things by feel, and they seem to work wherever he goes.
The Elias people devised a complex formula by which they were able to judge how many games a team should win with the average manager, given its personnel and its circumstances. And then they noted the difference, plus or minus, that the manager made in each situation. Now, Billy might get a break under that formula because he's inherited so many poor teams and given them a quick jolt, a quick fix situation. They've improved rapidly, and then he's been gone rapidly. Hit to Riles. They get one. They don't turn two as Meacham beats it at the other end.
You saw a good example of the proper way, or the book rule way, to try and take out a runner. A straight slide, middle roll block, as we saw earlier with Henderson. And McClellan was watching it carefully. Remember earlier, Ricky Henderson, who went into a roadblock. McClellan called the runner out at the other end, sent Meacham back to second base. The Slaught this time with a clean slide. I've always felt that if they were going to allow the runners to take roadblocks or go way out of the baseline, then they should allow you to get away with the Phantom tag. Because a middle infielder's got to do something to avoid illegal slides. If they enforce that, then they better start touching the bag at second base.
Henderson swings on the first one. Fly ball to right center. Braggs and Yount.
Out.
They collide. Yount goes down. Braggs has the ball. Robbins a pretty sturdy guy, but anyone who collides with Braggs, this side of Arnold Schwarzenegger, is going to come out second best. Now here's a look back at a very special Olympic moment. Not this one, but the one you're about to see. Folks, in response to hundreds of phone calls, yes, we got off on the wrong foot with the first trivia question a week ago. Actually, there are only 4 players who fit this description. We gave you the answer of Ruth, Mize, Aaron, DiMaggio, and Mays. Mays does not belong on the list, so we're 0 for 1. And now we see the very moderate reaction of NBC executives when I return to the office. Just a mild reprimand for the error. But undaunted, we return for week 2. Now, a lot of people would just pack it in here. You know, Tony, they give it up. But a real champion comes off the deck and comes right back out swinging.
You folks might have noticed it was Bob's trivia question, but Tony's trivia wrong answer. What is going on here?
All right, now, looking to bat 500, we come out with this week's trivia, which has been thoroughly researched, believe me. How long was Joe DiMaggio's second longest major league hitting streak? The answer coming up after this pitch from Stoddard. 23 games, the year before the big one.
Obviously a correct answer, because it doesn't say Tony's trivia answer. You doctored that baby up to get me.
Surhoff in the last of the 7th with the Brewers leading 8-2. Let's see if Paliarulo has room. Over near the Yankee dugout, he's got it. Isn't it amazing, though, that Willie Mays never led the National League in RBIs? He had some big years, but they always came at a time when someone else had the season of his life. For example, in 1962, Willie hit 49 homers and had better than 140 RBIs, but Tommy Davis drove in over 150 that year for the Dodgers. So scratch Mays from the list, and the correct answer is 4. Mize, Aaron, DiMaggio, and Ruth. Case closed. Brock has been a big story today. His 3-run homer got the Brewers off and winging in the first.
The pitcher can just throw strikes today. You don't have to nibble at this time of day. The sky is a background. You can see the sun from the shade, through the sun, into the shade. Tough to hit. Defensive swings, tough to come back.
Wrapped to second. Willie Randolph is in front of it. 2 quick outs. Well, what about this thing in the Elias Annals? With Billy as the #1 manager of all time. Just to put it in perspective, the same list has Bobby Cox, undeniably a fine manager, but they have Bobby Cox ahead of Earl Weaver. They have Herman Franks ahead of Casey Stengel.
I didn't see the formula they use. There obviously has to be some kind of subjectivity in that. It can't be all documented, and it makes for interesting controversy. And I agree with you. Who gives you better data than the Elias Sports Bureau? I mean, it's read religiously by broadcasters, writers, but you stir up the hornet's nest, as you said. You can't argue with the results, though. You know, no matter what they say about Billy and his off-field antics and dislike of marshmallow salesman, doggone guy puts a team on the field, and this time he's inherited a good team. Perhaps the best offensive team he's ever had, and he put Clark's bat in there as it is the last couple of days. And it's a ball club that could averaging, which is almost unheard of, average 6 runs per game over 162. That's how potent they can be. And if Roberto Kelly starts hitting a little bit with his great speed, it's another base stealer that you've got along with Ricky Henderson. With a high on-base average, they'll have base runners against even good pitchers all year long.
That's the young man from Panama who's been platooning in center field with Claudell Washington.
He can run. He is, when he's out in center field, it's the best defensive outfield in baseball. Henderson, Winfield, and Roberto Kelly in 7th.
2-2 to Deere with 2 out and nobody on. 8-2 Brewers, last half of the 7th. Deere is singled, stolen a base, struck out, and then grounded out, picking up an RBI in the process in the 5th.
Billy Martin has been famous, and Art Fowler, too, getting a lot of complete games out of his pitching staff. Some said he hurt the pitching staff he had with all those complete games at Oakland. 3 of those 4 pitchers deny that. In fact, he's got Rick Langford now. Billy does at Columbus, and he's thrown a couple of good ball games for that ball club. So there's a chance that if his arm comes back, he might be up here.
More trouble brewing for the Braves. 6-3 Dodgers in the 6th. Well, when you mention Langford, it brings up the argument that would be advanced by some of Billy's detractors. You give Billy credit for taking a team beyond its expectations, like he did with Oakland. But they would argue there's a lingering effect. Half the young pitchers on that team blew their arms out. And the long-range effect might have been worse than the short-term benefit.
Art Fowler's pitching coach, one who believes you've got to throw a lot. And the more you throw, the more effective you are, and the stronger your arm gets. Mike Norris, in fact, who's on that staff also, Billy wanted him in spring training. I guess that was vetoed by the front office, but Langford is back in the Yankee organization. There's Art Fowler. He said, don't show me on camera. He said, my wife still thinks I'm with the Dodgers. You know, I'm back with the Yankees.
Braggs gets under one and hoists it to left. Here's Henderson. Well, Mrs. Fowler, we certainly hoped that you're over the shock. We wanted to break it to you as gently as possible. Your man is with Billick, and neither is smiling today. We'll be back. Superstars tomorrow on NBC. No question this guy's a superstar, but the old-timers would cringe at that fly ball catching technique. The finals at 4 Eastern Time. Herschel Walker, track and field's Ronaldo Nehemiah, just two of the people vying for the title on Sports World. Down by 6.
You didn't like Ricky's stylish catch?
I didn't say I didn't like it. I just said some who stressed the fundamentals wouldn't approve. Chuck Krim comes on. Bosio stands to get the victory. Here's a tapper behind the bag at second. Swain comes up with it and throws Willie Randolph out.
Once again, Swain showing that outstanding range to his left. It would be interesting to see if there are any balls hit to his right, what he does. So many times the shortstop has middle infielders really have a weak side they go to and a strong side. He has shown his strong side ranging to his left. We haven't seen him try to go to his right yet.
Mattingly singled his last time. Takes a ball from Krim, who's 26 years old, a native of Van Nuys, California. 6-footer, 170. Worked in yesterday's game and was touched for an 8th-inning homer by Don Slaught.
He was one of the surprise stories of last year's Brewer team. Wasn't supposed to make the ball club, went through spring training last season, had a good spring, and just kept pitching better and better. He got some starts last year that perhaps looked more toward long relief. What they're trying to do is get through this inning, and then it probably will be Plesac to come on and finish it off. Tom Trendelhorn didn't want to against a hitting team like this. Tomorrow's still to come. Go to Plesac for more than one inning unless you had to. Like to be able to use him a couple days in a row.
Looks like Donnie broke his bat.
Mattingly is an incredibly hard worker. He's hooked up, I've forgotten the name, of some kind of visual machine for reflexes where you've done it for about 3 years now. It's something he's been marketing. Peliulo has done it, a lot of others. It's called Activision or whatever it is, but it's for eyesight, hand-eye coordination, quickening reflexes, and he feels it's helped him with his hitting. It's the minor leagues. Hit the ball the other way, didn't pull much, and then Mickey Vernon was his minor league hitting instructor. He said, I'm not going to touch this kid, and a few little fine points, then Piniella got him to use his lower body and hit for power.
Riles plays it with his chest and has time to recover, so Mattingly is 1 for 4. Dodgers now with a 7-4 lead over the Braves. Bottom of the 7th at Dodger Stadium. White Sox in front of Oakland 3-1. Clark hasn't put the ball in play yet today. Struck out twice and walked on a very close 3-2 pitch. Breaking ball swung on and missed.
Of course, in Yankee Stadium, I would guess it's because of Jack Clark. They've moved the fences in and left center field a little bit more and in dead center field.
Well, they'll tell you that decision was made before the acquisition of Clark. They wanted to enlarge that Memorial Park area where the monuments and the plaques honoring the past Yankee greats reside. They wanted to give the fans a bigger area to move around in when viewing that piece of Yankee history. Another curve, another swing and a miss.
Well, they've enlarged it to the point where the visiting bullpen is so obscure the players can't even see the playing field. Bill Blyleven went there the first time. He's the player rep for the Twins, and he filed a grievance, so we can't even see the game out there. They talked about shortening the dimensions for Winfield when they got it.
Whoa, there goes the bat, and Clark is struck out for the 3rd time. They can just put it in the rack for him. Take care of it, Ricky. So that left center field dimension, which once was a long 457, has been gradually reduced to 399. As even the newest baseball fans know, this telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. That little doll is one of 24,972 here today on a gorgeous afternoon. Yesterday, very blustery, almost bitterly cold day. They drew just under 56,000, which was the largest opening day crowd in the majors anywhere this year and the biggest regular season crowd in Milwaukee Brewer history. In comes Guterman to work the last half of the eighth.
It's been a remarkable franchise. Bud Selig went to winter meeting after winter meeting to try and get a team back here. Then they got Harry Dalton. They went out and got free agents. They won. Then they had to rebuild. They're doing that. Bruce Mantle, the farm director. This organization for a couple of years in a row has been had the farm system of the year, voted by Baseball America. A kid named Gary Sheffield, remember the name. Dwight Gooden's nephew, who they sent to hit here now. He's only 19 years old. He's a shortstop at Sheffield, but they say he may end up being a third baseman.
2-0 to Riles, followed by Gantner. Lines it to left. It's in there for a hit. So the Brewers, in possibly their last at-bat, looking to build on an 8-2 lead.
This will be interesting now with the stop. I want you to watch a left-hander now. We showed you a rule earlier about the intent to deceive a base runner. Now, even if Guterman comes to the stop, let's watch his head and his front foot. If he does anything funny, technically, according to the way they're calling this thing, the intent to deliberately deceive, it's got to be called a balk. What is he trying to do right there with that leg kick? He's trying to deceive the runner deliberately. That's what he's supposed to be doing, trying to hold him close.
We've had only one balk called today, that on the right-hander Rodent, for failure to step directly toward first base when making a throw over there, not for failing to come to a discernible stop before working to the plate.
The intent to deceive. What's this? You're on first base. Now, he's looking at you, the leg kick. Hey, if they're going to start picking apart moves and discernible stops at all, that's going to be a balk, according to the intent to deceive. It's got to be silly.
Paliarulo is able to stop it. Does he recover in time? He does to get Gantner. Clete Boyer is back with the Yanks as Billy Martin's third base coach. Few, if any, were in his class with the glove. Brooks Robinson, maybe. Billy Cox. Maybe a more recent Yankee like Greg Nettles. But there's Clete right in the middle, rubbing his hands together. He manned the left side of the infield along with you, Tony, and he's worked with Paliarulo to improve his work at third base.
He worked with Carney Lansford when he coached over there when Carney was at Oakland.
He had an interesting observation about tags. He said that when a hot shot was hit over the bag at third, Tags would dive, but he was diving almost straight down and missing the ball. He got him to dive more flat out, more parallel to the ground, to have a better chance to stop that ball hit directly over the third base bag.
It hurt the dive straight down also. But burrowing nose first. I can just picture that. Paint a nice picture.
Well, straight down in a relative sense. Not talking about the Greg Louganis off the high board. Switch hitter Swain turns around to the right side. You interpret my remarks as literally as the umps interpret the balk rule.
I'm having difficulty believing you and the umps at times.
One out, one on, and a 1-1 count to Swain in the last half of the eighth. 8-2 Milwaukee. 3-run homer by Brock. 2-run homer by Yount. They're the big blows. This one is hit softly in the left center. Henderson coming on. Drops in front of him. Riles being waved home. It's 9-2 Milwaukee.
Been a lot of defensive swings over the last 4 or 5 innings with the conditions here. Starting time at around 3 o'clock. Little those swings, just putting the bat on the ball. Swain was retold. He struck out about 130-plus times last year, but he knew one thing. I've just got to put it in play. Guterman doesn't throw hard. He stayed with a breaking ball that was down. Was almost going to be scooped out of the dirt by Slot. He gets himself a ribby.
Molitor has a stolen base to go with those 3 singles today. He scored twice. Ball 1 to him.
It's interesting if, we talked about Billy Martin wanting more complete games for his pitching staff. He's got people like Candelaire who's completed a game against Toronto. Dotson has completed a game. Roden, opening day. If there's a soft spot, is it the bullpen till they get to Righetti?
This one is hit softly in the right center. Winfield in front of Washington for the catch, so Molitor is now 3 for 5. Last year, with Piniella rather than Martin managing, the Yankees got just 19 complete games, one of the lowest figures in the majors. But even more significantly, only 64 times did the Yankee starter pitch 6 complete innings. That's less than 40% of the time, even getting you to the 7th, where your bullpen could take over.
We've got to remember Tommy John's age. If Guidry comes back, shoulder problems after surgery.
Guterman throws Yount out and will move to the 9th. The Yankees are down by 7. They'll send up Paliarulo, Winfield, and Washington. Dan Plesac comes on to finish it. He's not eligible for a save here. He was telling me before the game, the way things have been going for us, I haven't even had a save opportunity yet. And then we began talking about the rash of balk calls. He said he had gone back and reviewed tapes of his 1987 form. And in his opinion, he balked literally every time he came out of the stretch, based on the present interpretation. So I asked him, how difficult is it to change those habits? He said it would seem easy. You just keep reminding yourself that in the heat of battle, you revert to old habits. You go back to the groove you had previously found. And it takes a long time before that muscle memory wears off.
Well, he balked. He balked in that first Yankees series, and that is what he will be throwing at. Look at the left center and right center field bleachers, those bright shirts. And if Plesac comes out of that with 90-plus fastball, as hard as he throws, he struck out more than 1 per inning last year, didn't walk very many. And Paliarulo's 2 home runs this year have come off left-handed pitchers. It's unusual for him, but since that, off left-handed pitchers, he has struck out almost every time to the plate.
11 of 13 at-bats in one stretch against lefties.
After he committed that balk, Chuck Hartenstein, with tongue-in-cheek, said to Plesac, when you go back to your hotel room in New York tonight, I want you to go before the mirror and 500 times practice coming to a discernible stop. And I think, Bob Uecker told us, Plesac took him seriously.
Well, a few days ago in Boston, he thought he had Ellis Burke struck out on a wicked 1-2 slider, but he was called for a balk. And the pitch was nullified. Now on the next delivery, he's sitting there thinking, don't balk, don't balk. He throws a fat pitch, and Burke sits it into the screen over the monster in left field for a home run.
He's a young pitcher. A lot of veteran pitchers are thinking the same way because of their old habits.
Aggs is caught looking. His difficulties against the lefties continue.
He's been compared to Dave Righetti. Dan Plesac, as Paliarulo sits down, he perhaps now throws harder than Dave Righetti. Righetti at one time threw this hard.
The Major League Baseball Game of the Week has been brought to you by the Heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet, by Miller Lite. For great taste, there's only one light beer. By Kingsford Charcoal, for equipment you can depend on. Kingsford Charcoal, what the pros use. And by Napa, all the right parts in all the right places. Winfield takes the ball. Came in hitting .459. He's 0 for 3 officially today.
When you look at the makeup and the youth of this Brewers starting staff, and you got this guy to close, it's kind of impressive. Guerra is really the veteran of the staff. We got in Mexico. He didn't come up as a young kid. Nieves still very young, not even 25 yet. Wegman, Birkbeck, Basio. There are an awful lot of good arms there. And when you back it up with this guy, Dan Plesac, some people say they're going to be the team of the 90s. We'll see about that.
3-0 pitch coming to Winfield. Walked him on 4 pitches, and now Gary Ward will bat for Claudell Washington. Gives us an opportunity to tell you that the executive producer of NBC Sports is Mike Weissman. Coordinating producer for our baseball coverage, Harry Coyle. Today's game produced by George Finkel, directed by John Gonzalez. Pre-game produced by Les Dennis. Pre-game directed by Mary Buta Lamusio. Technical directors Marilyn Altman, Richard Sansevier. Our thanks to our stat man, Steve Horn. One out, one on in the ninth. 9-2 Brewers. Swing and a miss. You know, Plesac is yet another guy who got on Billy Martin's bad side. He made what he termed some very innocent comments in a banquet setting about the Yankees, some of them tongue-in-cheek, some taken out of context in his view, in an article that was written in a small paper, suburban Milwaukee town. 0-2, good heat. And what were the odds that someone would clip that article from the small paper and send it to Billy Martin? Whatever the odds were, that's just what happened. And Billy posted it on the bulletin board to rile his troops.
A lot of what Billy does is gamesmanship. Ken Brett, a lot of other people.
He makes quick work of Ward. 3 pitches and take a seat, Garrett. He spaced 3 hitters, walked 1, struck out the other 2.
Surhoff sets up outside. One of those riding fastballs, about 93 or 4. And once in a while inside, the ball is sailing on your fist if you're right-handed. You'll go down with it, and sometimes it'll almost sink out of sight. Very lively arm.
Let's see if he can cool Slot off to end the game. Threw that one by him. Well, he's pumping. And he doesn't have to be cute with a 9-2 lead. He'll concede the steal to Winfield if that's what he wants, with Brock behind him. But coming to a discernible stop shouldn't be any problem at all. That's discernible enough. 0-2.
Is that the new high strike? A breaking ball up there that flirted with the belt.
And he pitched now. A 7-game losing streak for the Brewers, a 4-game winning streak for the Yanks will be history.
Here's a guy who was converted to a closer by Tom Trevelhorn with help from the pitching coach just to his right, Chuck Hartenstein. But he never pitched in relief in the minor leagues. Got up here, and they made him a closer. That's how valuable these guys have become.
1-2 pitch. Hit in the air, down the left field line, and into the seats, foul.
More than just the arm, you look at the makeup now. Plesac, as a kid pitcher in the minor leagues his first couple of years, had control problems, which you don't want as a closer. But he had the mentality. Chuck Hartenstein, closest to you, saw it. Felt he wouldn't get rattled. He could strike people out, get you out of bases-loaded jams.
Again, the 1-2. 2-2.
And when you've got a stopper, it doesn't hurt if that stopper is left-handed. So if you've got a key run on first base in a tight ball game, he can hold that runner a little bit closer. Sometimes prevent a steal. Keep him out of scoring position.
He struck out the side. He ends the losing streak with a flourish. And the PA system blares, "I'm a believer." Which the 25,000 or so here at County Stadium are, finally. Long losing streak behind them. The winning pitcher is Basio. He's 2-1, and even in his 1 loss this year, he's pitched very well. Gave him 7 strong innings on 3 days rest. Roden's the loser, and he has been the loser in the only 2 Yankee defeats of the season. The Yanks are now 9-2. Roden pitched a 3-hitter on opening day, and he's been hit hard in his 2 outings since then. 9-2 Milwaukee. Back to wrap things up in a minute. We could have gone with Brock, who had the 3-run homer, with Yount, who had the double and a home run of his own, but after much deliberation, this week's NBC Miller Lite player of the game is Chris Basio. Miller Lite is happy to present a check for $1,000 in his name to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. So tomorrow the Yankees go with Candelaria. The Brewers still don't know. Maybe Higuera if his back is back in shape. And we'll be back right after this. Here's the story of the game. Bottom of the first with 1 out after Yount double and Surhoff walk. Greg Brock off Rick Roden. Belt high fastball. Sends it into the bleachers in center for his first homer of the year. And a 3-0 lead. Then, in the bottom of the second, with 2 out and nobody on, Molitor singles. It brings up Yount, and he hits his 3rd of the season, victimizing Roden. Pitch up in the strike zone. He really gets under it. Sends one soaring into the left field stands. It was 5-0 at that point, and they go on to win it, 9-2. A quick check of other scores. Paul Kilgus with the shutout as Texas beat the Red Sox. Earlier today, Carter and Howard Johnson with homers in the 8th. Mets come from behind, beat the Cards 6-4. Cincinnati over Houston 8-2. Jose Rio is now 3-1. Bo Diaz with his 3rd home run. Minnesota beat Toronto 3-2. Gary Gaetti had a homer. Detroit beat Kansas City. Alexander the winner despite solo homers by Bo Jackson and George Brett. Pittsburgh behind Doug Drabek shuts out the Cubs 4-0. And if Atlanta doesn't come from behind to beat the Dodgers, their record will fall to 0-10. For Tony Kubek, I'm Bob Costas. Thanks for joining us for this NBC baseball doubleheader. Now let's join NBC Nightly News and John Cochran.